folks, this is Pastor Mike Hoggard, pastor of Bethel Church in Festus, Missouri, and head of prophetic research ministry with another Watchman video broadcast. Ever since NASA has been around, they've always named their spaceships and stuff like that after, not after people, after gods. The Apollo missions. Apollo was a god. Apollo was like the god of prophecy. Even the Columbia space shuttle, the Columbia rocket, things like that. Columbia, now this is interesting. Columbia is actually the Latin word columbine for a dove, and a dove is a symbol for something. A dove is a symbol for a feminine spirit. And that's interesting because now NASA has set up an airplane-based observatory. Now, they didn't call it the NASA Airplane-Based Observatory. They didn't call it that. They called it Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy. That spells Sophia. I looked at this the other day and I'm going, they made that up. Okay, they made that up. They took a word, Sophia, and made something out of it is what they did. Now, what is Sophia? What is this thing all about? And why is it flying around up in heaven? I'll tell you a little bit about what it does here in a little bit because while I'm putting my tie on for this broadcast, I was reminded of a verse in Romans chapter 1. We'll get to it in a little bit, and maybe it'll help explain from the Bible and according to NASA why this thing's flying around in the air and what it's doing up there. But it's some sort of new infrared telescope. Instead of, they scrapped this whole space shuttle program. So instead of putting this on a satellite, they put it in an airplane. And they fly it up into the stratosphere, which, is the stratospheric part of the name. Fly it up into the stratosphere, and they use this infrared to look, they say, at planets or stars or this and that and the other. I mean, who really knows what exactly they're doing up there? But we might get a clue from the scriptures here in a little bit. But this idea of Sophia, this is what got my attention. This idea of Sophia, other than it just being a woman's name, is actually it's a Greek word, Sophia. And in this particular case, this little bit that I know about Greek, in my Bible college days, I took New Testament Greek and did fairly well in that class. Almost flunked out on the book of Revelation, though. That's kind of odd. But anyway, this word Sophia, it's got different forms. It can be Sophos, which is the Greek word for wisdom. But the word Sophos is masculine. It's got muscles, okay? And it talks in a real deep voice. However, the Greek word Sophia is feminine. It has long hair and wears a dress, okay? So that's the Greek word in the feminine for wisdom is Sophia. Now, just in case you're wondering, and I'd always like to contrast things, and we're going to read some verses out of Proverbs in a little bit. If you study the book of Proverbs, you really need to. This is a really, really good book. Whenever somebody says, hey, I'm reading a really good book right now, and I would say, yeah, is it the book of Proverbs? Because that's a really good book in the Bible. But you study the book of Proverbs, you'll find two women in the Bible, and they're pictorialized as wisdom and foolishness, okay? And they're symbolized in the book of Proverbs this way. Wisdom in the book, godly wisdom in the book of Proverbs is pictorialized or symbolized as a virtuous woman. She's a good woman. You remember the virtuous woman in the book of Proverbs. She's very, very wise, and she's dedicated to her husband. This is a picture of the church, but it's also a picture of heaven, which Galatians chapter 4 says, New Jerusalem is the mother of us all as being born again Christians. And so our wisdom comes from heaven. And our wisdom is always, if you read Proverbs, concerning this woman, she is out there in the streets and she's telling everybody about her husband. She is giving honor to her husband. That is something to keep in mind, because there is a spirit moving through the earth, moving through the church. We'll see it in just a little bit. And we need some wisdom from the Bible to be able to determine what spirit this is. Is this the wisdom from heaven that comes down to us through the Holy Spirit, through the pages of the Bible? Or is this some perverted wisdom that's going to lead us astray from the Scriptures? This Sophia thing, I first encountered this. Let's get Dan Brown out here. This is the lost symbol. I had the Da Vinci Code in my office. When I first read the Da Vinci Code, I wasn't looking for anything particular. I just felt, I felt like God was telling me to read this book. So I read the Da Vinci Code, and I find out that the lead character in the Da Vinci Code is a girl by the name of Sophie, Princess Sophie, her grandfather called her. And in the Da Vinci Code, she is the inheritor of a bloodline. And that bloodline is the bloodline, supposedly now, between Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. If you remember the whole Da Vinci Code thing, that's what it's all about. And we actually have a video on that. If you don't have that, we'll get that to you. But anyway, and her name was Sophie, because it explains to you in the Da Vinci Code that this Greek idea of Sophia, the feminine wisdom thing, is actually a representation of what's called the sacred feminine or the divine feminine. It's all in artwork. It shows up everywhere. It's unbelievable the number of places that this shows up. But this idea of sacred womanhood, it worships the woman. It worships the female rather than God, the masculine. It worships her. When you hear people talk about balance and equality, you know what that really is? This idea that says the masculine deity has been in charge for too long. We need to let the feminine take over so that bring balance and harmony and equality. The yin-yang symbol is all about that. It's all about balance and harmony and equality. That's what when you start hearing those things come in, let's say politicians or preachers or women speakers or whoever, New Agers or whatever, when you start hearing words like that coming out, there's a spirit behind it. There is a move, a feminist move inside the church to promote the female, to promote the woman, to exalt her, to bring about this idea of equality inside the church. I hope you understand this, because this is exactly what's going on. This divine feminine idea, this spirit, is none other than Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots. And see, that's interesting, because there's a way that you worship the divine feminine. I won't have to go into a whole lot of detail. I'll just say that Mystery Babylon the Great is the mother of harlots, and you can take it the rest of the way, because that's what it is. Do you remember the TV show called The Event? Okay, take a look at the symbol for the TV show is The Event. I want you to notice that the two E's are opposites. And they are both pointing in the direction of the letter V. Now, the letter V is a symbol for the female. It's the compass part of the square and the compass. Okay, no, excuse me. It's the square part of the compass and the square, because it represents the divine female. And interestingly enough, this TV show called The Event was all about how the aliens have been here for 66 years. 6 times 11. Think about that, okay? And along the way, they have planned an invasion of our planet. They at first thought they were just going to coexist with us, and actually some of them coexisted a little too much, and you had, here again, this idea of these little hybrid babies running around. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on too. But anyway, the queen of all of these aliens, with their special DNA that they mingled with certain human beings, the queen of all of these people, they were somehow devoted to her in ways that the show ended. They never did finish out the whole concept of what it was all about, but whatever she said, they did. Okay, her name was Sophia. She was this red-headed woman, this idea of red hair. You remember that in the Da Vinci Code, the person who was sitting next to Jesus, not John the Baptist, It's this red-headed woman who is a representation of Sophia or Mary Magdalene or the divine feminine or the sacred feminine. She is the queen that seeks to rule everything. That was in the TV show called The Event, and the caption says, "What will you believe?" I want you to remember that word "believe" because we're gonna see it again here in a little bit. There it is in the Da Vinci Code. Her name was Sophie. She was the representation of the bloodline, the hybrid between the God and the human woman, Mary Magdalene. So you kind of get this idea of what she represents. Here's a book written by Andrew Harvey and Anne Baring called The Divine Feminine, exploring the feminine face of God throughout the world. And really, this is just goddess worship, is what it is. And we were talking about the book of Proverbs and how the book of Proverbs sort of defines the idea of biblical wisdom or heavenly wisdom coming down from heaven as a virtuous woman. We have in stark contrast to that the strange woman mentioned in the book of Proverbs. Here's Proverbs chapter 2, verse 16. The Bible says, "To deliver thee from the strange woman, even from the stranger which flattereth with her words." I want to stop right here, and we're going to talk about this as we move along. Think about this idea that Rick Warren put out called felt needs. Think about the idea that pastors all over the country, if you're wanting to identify whether a church or a pastor or a preacher or minister or whatever has the wisdom from the Bible, or they have strange woman wisdom in them, what spirit is controlling them, listen to them preach. Listen to their positive messages that they give. Okay? Remember, she flattereth with her words. I like my people in my church, and I try to take good care of them, and I try to give them strong encouragement from the Bible. But I'm not about to flatter them in the face of our own sinfulness. It's not right. Any pastor or preacher that just wants to tell you what you want to hear, by the way, you have itching ears for going to sit there. But this strange woman, that spirit flattereth with her words. She forsaketh the guide of her youth and forgetteth the covenant of her God. That spirit in a church will not lead you to the covenant that God has made, either the old or the new covenant that God has made with His people. She will lead you away from that. Whereas the Bible teaches us that we are saved by grace through faith, and that not of ourselves. It is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. Her spirit will take you away from that because she has forgotten the covenant of her God, and she will take you away from that into a salvation, a pseudo-salvation that is works-based. She will say, now if you do this or you perform this or you go into this meditation trance or whatever, if you do these things, then you'll hear the voice of God. She has forgotten, and she has caused you to forget the covenant in the New Testament that God made with you. For her house inclineth unto death, and her paths unto the dead. None that go unto her return again, neither take they hold of the paths of life. Proverbs chapter 5, verse 3. For the lips of a strange woman drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. But her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. I want you to think of two things in the book of Revelation. Number one, a star that falls from heaven, whose name is wormwood. And number two, Jesus.